My little girls are literally in the other room singing Hamilton songs. It's all I can hear. I don't think you guys can hear it, but how am I supposed to film when they're singing Hamilton songs? Because in my brain, I'm singing along. Raise a glass to freedom. If you know, you know. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Jen, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about all of the group subjects, curriculum that we did this past year. I'm currently homeschooling 5 out of my 6 kids because my oldest son is getting ready to start college in the fall, which is very exciting. My children are going into grade 2, grade 6, grade 8, grade 10, and grade 12. So I've done videos on each of their individual grade specific curriculum. And today I'm going to be talking about anything that I did with variations of either 2 of them or all of them. It kind of depends, you know, based on their age. I actually shared in my last video, which I combined both of my high school daughters' curriculum in that video. And one of the things that I shared for them that they each do, but I do with them together, is this Introduction to Logic by Master Books. So I talked about that in that video. If you want to hear about that a little bit more, so I guess you could sort of say that that was a group subject, but I thought it would make more sense to put in that video. So moving on, I actually have history, which is the story of the world, and we've been doing story of the world since the very start. This is actually book 1, and I forgot to bring book 2 up with me because I started doing story of the world when we first started. I was doing it with my 2 oldest. So with my son, who's now graduated, and then with my oldest daughter, who's the one going into grade 12. I started on story of the world with them and basically worked through the whole series with them. And we had actually gotten to the last book, and I actually just finished that off with her this year. Now with my 9th grader and my 7th grader, I've been kind of pairing them together. And so we started on book 1 last year, and we didn't get through the entire thing. We do a chapter a week. Basically how I do it is I break, well, it kind of depends. Sometimes the lessons are not very long, but sometimes I break up the lesson over 2 days. So like a Monday and a Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we'll kind of do some review and work on, we have like activity pages that I purchased separate from this. And it usually has maybe like a crossword or a fill in the blank. Sometimes there's a coloring sheet, and then also quizzes for the end of the week. So I started this with them last year. We didn't get through the whole thing. We continued on to it this year, and then also started on to volume 2, but also didn't get through that one. So we did part of volume 1 and part of volume 2. Just tried and true with story of the world. I love the format. I like how it's told. I like how it's broken up. We've kind of just fallen into a rhythm of how we do it and set up, and then they have a little bit of time to study for, again, it's just like it's really just a quiz. I wouldn't call it a test. It's just, you know, just to kind of make sure that they have some knowledge on what we've been learning all week. I think especially with something like history, because there's a lot of names and places and dates. So I do like to kind of see how they're doing with all of the information that they have been presented. But yeah, that's how we've been doing it. So did this with my like middle kids, I guess, and I already said we love this program. It works for us. I will be continuing on volume 2 with them next year. Another one that I did with my 9th grader and my 7th grader is the first book in the What We Believe series by Apologia. I did this series as well with my older 2. Can't remember now, honestly, if I know for certain there's 3 books, but now I'm not sure if there's a 4th book. I only did the first 2 books with my older kids. I wish that we had gotten further than that, but it was mostly because we did it at such a slow pace. And this is the kind of thing that we really stop a lot and discuss. We don't do it every day, but when we do these lessons, we always end up spending more time on them than I allot for, which I'm fine with, but we just stop a lot and have some really great discussions. This one is Who is God and Can I Really Know Him? And the back it says, in volume 1, students will meet our loving God who longs for us to know him and spend time with him. Through engaging stories and activities, they will come to know and trust God, building an unshakable faith that will last a lifetime. So it kind of dives into the who's and the whys of who God is and why should we and why do we believe in him. So just a great thought-provoking, the whole series is fantastic. That's why I've continued it on. And I mentioned that I plan on getting book 3 to do with my oldest daughter. I did this with, you know, my 2 middle kids. We did not get through the whole book. So we will finish it off hopefully this next year. And then we will hopefully get through maybe the first half of volume 2. And then I actually don't have these to show you because I print out the PDFs and then I just put them in binders. But once we're done, I kind of disassemble everything. But we did 2 of the science units from The Good and the Beautiful. We did marine biology and we did space science. I couldn't remember. So we did those 2 this year. I was thinking we were gonna get through more than 2, but that's just kind of how it worked out. Again, when we do the Good and the Beautiful science units, we maybe do it twice a week. We go at a very slow pace, and it's another one of those things where I encourage the kids to ask questions and talk about it, and if there's something that we're learning that they especially want to spend a little more time on, we will. Sometimes we will extend the lesson, maybe with a video or a documentary or something like that, or a book. They tend to kind of drag out, I guess, longer than maybe they're intending to, but I'm all about that. And if you've been here for any amount of time, then you'll know I say that quite a bit. With some of these, like with sciences and anything that is like apologetics or history, stuff like that, I just really do want to not just learn the facts, I want to talk about it and discuss it with my kids. So sometimes, you know, get a little off track, but that's okay. We can do that because we homeschool, and so you have the freedom to take as long or as little time as you want. But we do love the Good and the Beautiful science units. We did a few of them last year and then did those 2 this year. I would say they really did enjoy the space. I mean, they enjoy all of them, but I think they really did enjoy the space science. Was kind of neat, and learning the planets and all the characteristics of the planets and stuff. Unfortunately, the one I was most excited about, I don't know, it makes no sense because, like, Jen, why didn't you start on that one? I don't know why I didn't start with it, but I was actually the most excited about doing the paleontology course unit, and we never got to it. So, and I don't know why I waited, but I did. So I think this upcoming year, I'm gonna start with that one to make sure that we get to it, because I know my kids are gonna love that one. They're all into the animals and especially the dinosaurs stuff. So that's my plan. And we'll see if I stick to it. But I was also gonna mention that in terms of the Good and the Beautiful science courses, I only do that with my 4 youngest kids. I don't have my oldest daughter do it. Not that you can't include, like, you know, she's 16. It's not that you couldn't include them, but I would say that with the amount of stuff that she is doing and the amount of science related things that she is learning and doing, it's probably a little bit too below her level. So that's why I kind of was just like, okay, I think she's got science covered. But anyway, overall, if you're just looking to do unit studies with your kids, the Good and the Beautiful unit studies are fantastic. And I love how it's really open and go. And they've revamped a lot of their units. So format and what's included is even that much better. I'll keep you posted on what we do this upcoming year. Paleontology, and I'll probably have a couple of other ones in there somewhere, but I don't know, we'll see when we get there. Now, these last 2 things are ones that I did with all my kids, and we usually would do these, I guess you could say they were part of our morning time. Usually I would tack these on to the end of our morning time. The first one is this book, and it's Timeless Hymns for Family Worship. This is not maybe technically curriculum because, you know, we do a lot of things in our morning lifetime basket that I could talk about. But the reason I wanted to include this one is because I feel like it's fuzzy. Is it fuzzy? We just adored it. Well, I adored it. But I do actually think my kids enjoyed it as well. In this book, you have 18 different hymns, and actually will include the sheet music for it and the words, so you can read those or follow along. Then it'll talk about who the original writer slash composer was. You get a little bit of background into their life, into their story. At what point did they write the hymn? What was going on in their life at the time, or something that may have spurred them on to write the hymn. Then usually what we would do is I would read that to them, the kind of the background of it. Then we would listen to the hymn and then kind of talk about what it can mean for us. I just found it fascinating to, when you read the stories of the writers of these hymns and where they were in their lives, some of the absolute tragic moments, going through the worst things you could possibly imagine, and out of that coming this hymn. And then you hear it and you listen to the words, and it just takes on a completely different meaning. I mean, I am older, so, and I've grown up in church. I grew up in a Catholic church, actually, so I know especially a lot of these hymns, but I never really knew necessarily the background of the hymns and the writers. And I just found it absolutely just so impactful. I remember my husband would come home and I would be talking to him about, did you know, so-and-so who wrote this hymn, did you know that this is where this hymn came from? I was just so moved by this whole book. And I know even my kids, they probably recognize, I would say, about half of the hymns mentioned in here, because we have sung some of them in our church. And, sometimes when I just have worship music on, there's a lot of worship music we listen to where they've redone old hymns. So they were familiar with, like I said, about half of them. But I also know, because I could see the expression on their faces when I would talk to them about the stories behind the hymns, and them realizing the words that were written, and again, where that came from, the place where that came from in that person's life. So I wanted to include that because, we didn't technically do any work. There was nothing that I made my kids fill out or write or anything like that. It was just such a beautiful time that we had together. And I will never hear these hymns the same again. Even my kids, whenever one of these comes on now, or we happen to sing one in church, there's always one of them that's like, remember we read about that and who wrote it? And so I know it's made an impact on them as well. So if you think this is something that you would find interesting, or something that might add value to add into your homeschool, I highly recommend this book. All right, and then the last thing I have here is book 1 of Meet the Great Composers. I actually purchased book 1 and book 2 at the beginning of the year. We only got through book 1, but that's okay, because now we can do book 2 next year. I have a whole bunch of loose papers in here. This is all the worksheets. I probably could have done a better job at organizing it, but I would just stick it in the back of the book. So I think you can figure out what this is all about. But it focuses on various composers. This was, it kind of doesn't look like a big book, but there was so much in here. Each unit focuses on a different composer. So, unit 1, the story of Johann Sebastian Bach, and it goes into very detailed background on his life growing up, family life, influences, how he became who he became, their musical works. And so then usually while I was reading it, I would play something softly in the background, and then I would put on a very specific sonata or something from that composer that we would stop and listen to. What I liked was that for every composer, there was some sort of an activity sheet. So this one has a crossword puzzle, but sometimes there was fill in the blanks. Usually what I would do is I would actually print out 4 of the sheets for my 4 oldest kids, because my youngest daughter is only 6 years old and is kind of beyond what she could do independently. For my daughter, I would just go online and I would find a free printable for that specific composer. I'm trying to find one for her to color in, like a coloring sheet. So here's an example of one. You might ask, but it's a picture of a cat. Yes, it's a picture of a cat on a piano, and that was for Domenico Scarlatti. And it's related. That's all I'm gonna say, okay? The cat on the piano is related to him. That's how we did it. And it was fun. It was fun because it didn't take very long. Like, we probably did that in about 20 minutes maybe, between me reading, them filling in the sheet, us listening to the music. I would say it'd take about 20 minutes, but it was like just enough. It was just enough where I felt like we were getting ample information about each one of them, but not overkill. Like, not too much. Because I'll be honest, listen, I can appreciate all the things with classical music. I do enjoy classical music. Once you start reading about the composers, a lot of it seems like it seems a little bit it's not repetitive, but because obviously they're not the same person, but sometimes it starts to feel like you're reading the same thing. To a certain extent, it was like, wait, who was that one again? So that's why I feel like it was short and sweet. It was enough to still be enjoyable, and we did enjoy it. So I do plan on doing this again next year with the kids. By the way, these ones I get, they do come with the CD at the back that has all the music. If you want to go old school, or you don't, maybe you don't have Spotify or something like that, just get a CD player. You could probably get one at like the thrift store, and you could listen to the music that way. That was everything. It wasn't too much, you know, between all our morning time stuff and the kids' individual, like, independent work. We do read alouds, and they also have independent reading. So, you know, I didn't want it to be too overwhelming, too much. And of course, as they're getting older, also they're doing more independently. Sometimes, you know, at the start, I mean, look, there's value to doing group subjects. I kind of talk about this when it comes to read alouds. I've mentioned how I don't think you're ever too old to be read to. I really don't. I know my older kids enjoy it just as much as my younger kids do. And so I think there's value in doing group subjects. Sometimes you might not have to do it, but it's just different. You know, you could say it hits different when you do them together, you know. And that being said though, as my kids get older, we're not doing as many things as a group. It was more of a necessity when they were younger because I kind of had to lead a lot of the subjects. So I would just put them in little groups of 2 or 3 and we work on a lot together. But, you know, as they get older, they become more independent and do a lot more of that on their own. But I really do still enjoy any time that we can sit down and work on something together and talk and laugh. I mean, that's really all part of it, to be honest with you. It's kind of sharing those moments and those memories and kind of just all learning something together, I think is invaluable. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I do plan on doing one more video. As of now, one more video, which would be my kids, everything that they read independently. So all their assigned reading for the year may or may not be the next video coming up. But until then, I hope you're doing fantastic. Thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it. I would love it if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.